Barbells, Bikinis and Balance, a podcast that takes a look at our physical, social and mental well-being in order to create a fulfilled and balanced life. I'm Storm Kirkham of Storm Effect Fitness, and today I had a guest speaker on. Her name is Chloe Brennan, and together we took a look at the history of women's weightlifting and the incredible benefits that resistance training can have on women in particular, and we also talk about our personal experiences. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. It was really interesting to talk to someone that was performance goal based and orientated with her training versus me, who's more lifestyle and physique based. So please do take a listen, and I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the first episode of Barbells, Bikinis and Balance. Today we are going to be discussing the history of women's weightlifting. We're also going to be looking at the benefits of incorporating resistance training into your life. And I am so happy to say that my guest speaker today is Chloe Brennan. She is a UK strongwoman, and she has recently won the 73 kilogram class at the UK Arnold Pro show. And literally, Chloe, you were just talking to me about what you do, and if you've ever seen the Strongman show that's on TV, I'm sure there's a channel where it's like on loop all the time, but yeah. Basically Chloe lifts boulders in competitions and is literally she embodies what a strong, powerful woman is. So Chloe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, right, so I'm going to just talk a little bit first of all about women's weightlifting and the origins of it. So in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, strong women were part of circus tours, and they put on shows where massive crowds would be drawn to them because they would be bending metal bars, they'd be lifting men up, they'd be doing all these really powerful demonstrations of strength. And the reason people were drawn to it was because they were so contradictory to what women should have been at the time. And there was this big, basically women were put into this box of being the homemaker, and they were the mothers, and not only was it society that was kind of keeping them in this box, but there was actually quite a lot of legalities that kept them in this position as well. So they couldn't actually open, I think, a bank account without a man or being married. And there was a lot of things that were holding women back. And so to see these strong, powerful women on stage lifting men up, I guess it was just something that society was not used to at all. Chloe, have you ever researched about the origins of women's weightlifting or anything?
Yeah, so I've seen like bits of it. I haven't looked at it as in-depth as you have. I think I'm just so like swept up in the moment of it. But I know, like, from my experience in the sport, so I started in 2016, and the growth that we've seen in the women's side is insane. Like the Arnold Pro show that we had this year, like that would just not have happened when I started doing it, with prize money and a big stage and all of these things. So even within like such a short space of time, it's coming on real fast. But it's all such modern history, so it's interesting.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, it is coming on quickly now, but the fact that, I mean, the first ever women's weightlifting championships wasn't held until 1987. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think women actually competed in weightlifting in the Olympics until the year 2000. So I feel like what you're saying is, like, yes, it's modern history. And thank goodness that it is kind of having the snowball effect now, because we're going to get into the benefits of weightlifting and resistance training for women. But it's been so, I don't know, like stigmatized for so long, massively stigmatized. And I guess the first thing I wanted to like really address is this idea that it makes that when you incorporate weightlifting or resistance training into your program, it makes you big and bulky, and you're going to get these huge muscles. And guys, honestly, if you look up Chloe on Instagram, you'll be able to see that if you looked at Chloe walking down the street, I don't think anyone would be like, oh my gosh, look at her, she looks like a strong woman, because you don't look like this big, bulky Hulk, She-Hulk. Like, And I feel like this big misconception that by doing resistance training is going to make you bulky stops a lot of women from actually taking part in the first place. Would you agree?
Definitely. It nearly stopped me when I started. Like when someone first spoke to me about the sport, I was like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to get big. I don't want to get bulky. I don't want to look like a man. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm still waiting for that day to come. Now I'm at the point where I like want to grow muscle, and I'm like, it's so hard. So yeah, lifting weights doesn't turn you into the Hulk. And actually, the first few years when I started, I like lost. Like I was my lightest weight I'd ever been, and I was getting stronger and stronger. And I just felt good in myself, and I think it's a big misconception, and most women who actually do take that plunge, and I know a lot of my clients have, since they've started, they're like, oh my god, I feel amazing, and I don't look like the Hulk, and I'm not massive, and yeah, it's just one of those
Exactly.
things.
And like you say about you felt like actually you were at your smallest you've ever been 2 years into your training. And if we talk about that very quickly, so as you start to do resistance training and you start to develop your muscle tissue, and let's say alongside your development of your muscle tissue, you're also losing fat mass. Your muscle tissue is much denser and more like condensed than fat is. So for the same amount, muscle takes up a lot less space. So 2 kilograms of fat might take up this much space, and 2 kilograms of muscle will take up this much space. So that's why I feel like there's also this big stigma around the scale weight, right? So women, I feel, I've actually got quite a lot of clients that have got a really bad relationship with the scale. And if they see their weight going up on the scale, that is not good for them, even though it's quite indicative of they're developing muscle mass, and that's a good thing for them. It scares them. So actually, if we're talking about standing on the scale, like let me ask you, Chloe, so how, if you don't mind me asking, like how has your weight changed since you started weight training?
So when I started, I was like mid 70s kilos. Then I had to drop weight, so I compete in weight classes. So I competed at under 64. So I lost about 15 kilos when I first started training.
Wow.
But then I kind of hit a wall where I was like, this is too small for me. Like I'm like 5'6", 5'7", and put on a lot of mass, and my body fat was just really low when I was at that weight. So it got to a point where I was like, actually, I need to put on some tissue. So now I sit around between 70, 73 kilos. So it's changed a lot, but I don't, because of the training I do, I never really focus on the weight. I focus on how strong I am, how I'm performing, rather than what I look like or what the scale says.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing as well, is so not like people can, and I do encourage people to, if they're unhappy with how they're looking, definitely to take part in resistance training to help improve their body composition and actually to feel more comfortable in their skin. But like you were saying, if you've got a performance goal alongside that, it can help you not become too hooked on the scale weight and what you're looking like, because you are finding joy and motivation in your performance. And when you start reaching those performance goals, it's such an incredible feeling. And yeah, tell me about one of your best memories of reaching a performance goal.
Oh god, there's so many. I think
that's amazing in itself.
Yeah, it's always the journey of getting there. I think the most recent one, the biggest rush that I've ever had was I set the Rogue replica Denise Stone world record, so over at the Arnold's in the US. There was a record breakers thing. I hadn't been invited to it, managed to get my invite, snuck in there. Basically said, I want to come, please have me. And they did. And I was against two phenomenal athletes who are open weight strong women. Both have won World's Strongest Woman before. And I beat both of those to this record. And it was just insane. Like,
oh my gosh.
After, like with the crowd, it just went nuts. It was like one of the best experiences of my life.
Can you explain what it was that you had to do to, like, what was it?
Oh god, it's so difficult to explain. So it's basically two massive rocks with rings
Yeah.
on them. So the front one is 188 kilos, the back one is 144 kilos, and it's just picking them up.
Yeah, and you have to lift them off the floor for a certain amount of time, or it just has to clear the floor.
So the record was a timed hold, but the other girls didn't get it off the floor at all. I managed to get, I think it was like 1.6 seconds or something like that. So it wasn't much of a hold, but I was the first woman.
But you lifted it off
to
the
do that.
floor. That's
Yeah.
insane. Well done. Amazing. And like you say, it was such a big rush. So I guess when you feel that, it makes it all worthwhile, and you almost want to do something else then, don't you? So like, what have you now set your sights on after you've achieved this?
Yeah, it's crazy, and I think like a strong woman, like I always just want to compete and do the best I can on the world stage, but I'm actually doing some Olympic weightlifting at the moment as well, so changing it up a bit. I think it's really important to like have some variety in your training. So like I love strongman, but I just needed a bit of a break to do something different. So now I'm pushing my body in another way, and obviously I need to be strong, but I need to be much more mobile. So having those challenges on top is really fun.
Yeah. And can I ask, like, how did you even get into it? Like, how did you get into this?
By accident. No, it was my partner. My partner got me into it. Like I said, wasn't really interested in the gym, didn't really want to go. I did gymnastics as a kid, so I was all into that. And then the thought of doing weights just scared me. But I did some like body pump classes. I did the whole wandering around the gym, not having a clue what I was doing.
Yeah, snap.
We've all been there.
We've all started in body pump, haven't we?
It's so hard. I would never go back now because it's ridiculous.
I know, me neither. But it is such a good starting point, and I do feel like it's interesting when you learn how to do it yourself. I guess when you're first starting off and you're a bit unsure about how to do certain things, being in that kind of group atmosphere and being shown exactly what to do, and the weights aren't that intimidating because you're doing so many reps, they have to be quite light. So all in all, it's a really good place to start feeling comfortable around weights and in a gym kind of environment. And then I guess we've both started in body pump, and then we've moved up and onwards, and we've seen how amazing weight training can be. And you've gone in one direction, I've kind of gone in like a physique direction and lifestyle direction. So it's really cool. And then so your partner was really into weights, and you started off doing the whole wandering around the gym, not really sure what to do, going on some machines, kind of not really with any direction. And then what happened?
Started going to a weightlifting club, it's called International All-Round Weightlifting, the association we did it with, which was it's crazy. They do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. We ended up going to a couple of strongman shows. I got pushed into one to join in, got entered into my first England's Strongest Woman qualifier, won it, and then I just got pushed into everything basically. And then I quite like it here.
That's amazing.
It's quite good, but I wouldn't have ever done it off my own back. I remember entering my first competition and I was so nervous, like for months beforehand. I was like, oh, I don't want to do it, have I done the right thing? Like, it was unbelievable. But now I couldn't imagine it not being a part of my life.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to talk a little bit more. So we've already spoken about how muscle is denser, and the more muscle you have on your frame, the faster your metabolism is. So I think Chloe can agree with me here, is like when you start training and you do start developing your muscles, your hunger levels go through the roof, because in order for your body to maintain that muscle mass, it takes a lot more energy to maintain it. And that's why as you start building muscle, you can start to eat slightly more as well, depending on your goals. Some people might still have to lose a bit of fat before they're happy with their weight, but in general, when you start building muscle, your metabolism goes up and you can eat more. So I'm just talking about some of the benefits, basically. Chloe, have you had that? Have you found that your appetite's gone up, or do you have a coach that's actually got you on a certain diet right now?
Yeah, so I have a nutritionist. I've worked with her since like 2020, so quite a while. I've been working with her now. And my food's going up and up and up and up. And it's like sometimes it's so much I'm like, oh, it's a bit hard to eat that today, but
yeah, and it's different for you as well because you have to stick to a weight class, so you have to make sure that, I guess, you've got in-season, off-season targets and things like that. So you and your nutritionist work closely together to keep you in prime condition for your weight class, which is, yeah, you're an athlete. Like, you're an actual athlete. It's amazing. But for the majority of people, so for the general population, you might have a weight goal in mind, and then you work towards that. And then once maybe you're at a certain weight, you can start eating more if you want to build muscle, because to even build muscle in the first instance, you need to eat in a surplus in order to generate that new tissue. Okay, so some other benefits of weight training. I want to talk about bone density because this is such an important one, and I think it's one that will help people live longer, more quality lives. So for women especially, they're prone to something called osteoporosis, and osteoporosis is essentially, if you imagine a crunchy bar, when you snap your crunchy bar in half and you can see all the bubbles, osteoporosis is basically where these bubbles get more and more and more and bigger, and it becomes more frail. So your bones actually become so frail that even the slightest kind of fall, you might break your hip, for example, and then also it will take a long time for you to recover from this. So weight training helps improve your bone density so that you stop or reduce the effects of osteoporosis. And I just think that is so important for people to realize, because as you do get older, it's such a big thing being independent and not having to be reliant on other people. I think it just improves your quality of life so much. Chloe, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, you can't really argue with it, can you? It is a massive, like, there's a big preconception that lifting weights goes hand in hand with injuries, but since I started weight training, I had like less niggles and injuries than I ever did doing like gymnastics, for instance. So it really does, and not just in terms of prevention for later life, but it does make you a bit more sturdy for your everyday as well. And like, a lot of my clients struggle with their knees and whatnot, especially my slightly older clients, and they're so surprised that once they start training with me and doing specific exercises, that pain goes away.
Yeah, and a point on that, like, if I don't move for a few days or like purposefully go training, I get such, like, my joints just feel like achy, and I'm just getting old. No, but on a serious note, like, when you do work out, the movement of your joints, you actually warm up the synovial fluid around your joints as you work out, and it just helps lubricate your joints, and everything just feels better. And if you have got niggles and little aches and pains around your body, honestly, the more you move, and if you incorporate resistance training in a meaningful way where it is controlled and with the right technique, it will change your life. I really believe that so strongly. I really do believe that, and it's part of like my purpose now is to help people understand this. So yeah, it's really interesting you say that. And then like you say, when you used to do gymnastics, you probably got injured more doing gymnastics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I used to play basketball, right? And the amount of times I rolled my ankle, or I actually got elbowed in the face and chipped my cheekbone. Like, what's that? Like, honestly, weight training, if, like I say, done in the right way, is just, yeah, incredible. It really does just strengthen everything. Your ligaments, your tendons, your muscles, your bones. Yeah, and actually as time goes on and more people are actually like researching weight training and resistance training in women, the more research is showing that these benefits are just so good. And the other thing when talking about getting into older age is the contractility of your muscles. So when you move, your muscles contract and then relax. Okay, so that power of contraction decreases as you get older. So you become that's why you become weaker, right? So if you were to ask if you imagine an 88-year-old, I don't know why I just picked that number, but an 88-year-old walking up the stairs, what can you imagine? Like, you can imagine them holding onto the side of the banister and then trying to pull themselves up, and they can't push themselves using their legs, right? So that's because the muscles in their legs haven't got the same power, or they can't contract with the same force. Whereas if you start resistance training, like, it doesn't have to be when you're young, but the sooner you start, the better. That contractility will stay better for longer. And again, that independence that you can have into an elderly life is going to really improve the quality of life. And then last of all, the last benefit I want to discuss is mental health, and how underrated, like exercise in general, but particularly resistance training and weight training, how powerful it is for your mental health. So like we were saying with Chloe about her performance goals, every time she reached a performance goal, the feeling, the euphoria that she felt, it creates this like positive feedback loop in your mind. So you feel more driven to achieve again and again and again. And then that transfers into your everyday life as well. So you will see improvements in your relationships with other people because you are more positive and you're more driven. You will see improvements in your work rate and how driven you are at work to succeed. Like, everything just becomes more complete and more whole, and they are so linked. Your mental, physical and social health are like so underratedly linked, like it's insane. Chloe, have you got any examples of your own personal mental health that's improved, or any clients that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, I think it's just an overall kind of growth since I've been doing it. It's just built my confidence up massively. And I think a big thing with myself, but also clients, and now I've set up workshops for people with like disabilities who obviously have more like adverse life experiences than the general population. And I think it's so important, like weight training shows you can do hard things, because you'll look at something one time and you'll go, oh, there's no way I can do that, that's too heavy, or that's too hard. And then you'll work, you'll train, and you'll do it, and it's like, oh wow, I did that really hard thing. So I can do hard things. So it builds your confidence in the gym, but you can also take that confidence outside of, like, I've got one client and she she's had a lot going on in her life recently, and she'll just say to me sometimes in our check-in, she's like, I had this thing come up, but then I thought, I can lift a bloody Atlas stone up, I can do anything. I was like, yes, you can. And
that's
it's so
amazing.
true.
Yeah, and the fact that she's now like that's helping her to understand her potential. Mm-hmm. Like, if she can do that physical thing, then mentally she can conquer anything. That's such a great, I love that. You need to put that on your Instagram, like
she's like, I can carry 200 kilos on my back, of course I can, like, say no to someone.
Yeah, exactly. Or I can make that difficult phone call, or have that difficult conversation with someone at work. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. Okay, so just to summarize so far, we have discussed briefly the origins of women's weightlifting and how it took quite a long time for kind of women's weightlifting to become accepted. And we've talked about how the benefits are just, there's so many benefits to weight training, and how there's still this stigma that weight training is going to make women big and bulky, when actually it's the complete opposite. And we have looked at mental health and bone density. And lastly, I would just want to like point out, relating a little bit to the big and bulky misconception, is that I have some personal role models that I just think they just embody, like, they embody women as being these elegant, sexy, strong, powerful, like, beings. And I honestly, so there's 3 of them for me at the moment. So I've got Lauren Simpson. I don't know if you've heard of her. They're actually all Australian, these as well. So Lauren Simpson, Hattie Boydell. Hattie Boydell is absolutely insane. She actually incorporates, so these are all physique models in particular, but Hattie Boydell trains like an absolute beast, and she actually incorporates a lot of strength work into her training now. I think she's actually kind of reshaping how physique models train, because she also incorporates like strength and like squats, deadlifts, etc. into her training. It's not just all about hypertrophy and growing muscles in certain places. She's actually got a lot of performance goals in there as well, and she is just insane. I'll send you her, Chloe, on Instagram, because she's And then the last one was Mickey Parker, who is very similar. They're all Aussie, like I said, but I just feel like these women literally do just embody what I feel the future generation of women are going to look like Amazonian warriors, like powerful, strong, like I said, like elegant as well. And I feel like people kind of feel like once you start weight training, that's not possible, but it 100% is. You can train like a beast, but outside of the gym, you can still be very womanly and feminine. And yeah, have you got any role models that you look up to?
So I think I always find this question really hard because I think it changes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're kind of talking about like positive female role models that people can go out and research, I guess like from more of a performance side, from like my little world, there is a lady called Donna Moore. She's won World's Strongest Woman 3 times. She's set several world records and is just the loveliest human being you'll ever meet, and is so kind of set on to
I'm going to look her up.
Yeah, she's a phenomenal athlete, and she's recently like gone down a weight class, so she's anything to do with like strength performance, she's done it, and she's just such a good advocate for the sport. She's she's strong.
She is strong. Jeez.
So that's Donna, and then I think another great role model actually from powerlifting. There she is. There's Don. Oh, look at
That's
her.
your role model. She is a powerful woman, I can tell.
It's so funny. Like when I started off, like I used to look at Donna and be like, "Oh my god!" Like she's like the queen of strong woman. And now we're friends, and it's very bizarre. It's really strange, but she's ace. And then there is a girl called Sophia Ellis. She is a powerlifter, European champion, record holder. She's just amazing. Again, a big advocate for females in strength sports. She's very open with her journey. So she is in recovery from an eating disorder, and her journey is just remarkable. And the things she does to promote the sport, grow the sport, get women into the sport, help women with their recoveries through telling her story. It's just phenomenal, because obviously there was a time when she would never have considered doing this, and now she's setting records, travelling the world, competing, and just being an absolute badass. So I think... Yeah,
she sounds like a badass.
If people need people to look at, they're my 2 girls that I would...
Okay, yeah. So for everyone listening, look up... so it was Donna Moore and...
Sophia Ellis.
Sophia Ellis, amazing. Is there anything you want to add before we wrap up? Anything you'd like to say to women listening and potentially need that extra little motivation to get involved with?
I think stop waiting for the right time to do it, and just do it. If you need help, you've got me and Storm right here, both online coaches. Storm, you seem to be very much with like the physique kind of thing. I'm very much on the performance side of things. So I mean, you've got 2 great coaches here that you can come to for advice. But yeah, and have a look if you do want to get started. There's so many coaches out there. Have a look and see who would be a good fit for you. See what they do, and if you'd like to give it a go, or find a local group. Like I train at a CrossFit gym, and oh my god, CrossFit is amazing for getting into like strength training. There's so many different kinds of people there, from like there's a like 60-year-olds, there's like people that are like really good, really athletic, that like everyone can join in. So I think just, and I will
say, if you find a good CrossFit gym in particular, they're very good at regressing the movements, so that even the most beginners can take part in a really effective way. So yeah, definitely, if you're interested in kind of the performance aspect, then definitely look into CrossFit or reach out to Chloe. And then, yeah, I personally really just love how you can use resistance training to sculpt and completely change your body composition. And for me, I find it very mindful. So for me, I like putting on my headphones and having my planned workout and making my way through it. And not only is it time, every training session I go there, I truly believe like I am one more training session towards my goals. And it's also just time for me to be in my head by myself and not worry about anything else. So for me, it's quite meditative or therapeutic, and that's how I approach my training. So if you're listening, like me and myself and Chloe are very, very different. But yeah, I think if you're interested in kind of like performance stuff, reach out to Chloe, and I'm sure she could give you some starting points if you're interested in getting started or even are interested in working with her. And then same with me, if you're interested in just starting, I can definitely give you some pointers to get started. And yeah, let's keep promoting the benefits of weight training and resistance training. And Chloe, I want to say a massive, massive thank you and good luck with all of your future endeavours. I'm going to be I am going to be completely engrossed in what you're doing on social media from this point forwards. And we'll talk soon.
Fab. Thanks for having me.